At 82, Mick Jagger, the legendary frontman of the Rolling Stones, has finally opened up about the 10 bands he could watch forever, revealing a mix of reverence, admiration, and pure musical obsession that has informed his life, career, and understanding of rock and roll over more than 6 decades. And as he reflects on the bands that have captivated him, it becomes clear that his choices are not about popularity or commercial success but about artistry, energy, and the ability to convey emotion and presence on stage, because for someone like Jagger, who has spent a lifetime performing in front of millions, watching a band is not merely about the music itself but the charisma, the chemistry, and the electricity that comes from witnessing artists fully inhabiting their craft. And he begins by naming the first band, Led Zeppelin, a group whose explosive energy and unparalleled musicianship he says left him both awestruck and challenged as a performer, noting that the combination of Robert Plant's soaring vocals, Jimmy Page's innovative guitar work, John Bonham's thunderous drumming, and John Paul Jones' melodic foundations created a live experience that was almost spiritual, a collision of rock, blues, and virtuosity that demanded attention and respect. And Jagger reflects on attending some of their legendary shows in the 1970s, feeling a mixture of exhilaration and humility as he watched a band that seemed to defy gravity, rewriting the rules of stagecraft while still remaining grounded in raw, emotional rock and roll. And he emphasizes that it was not just technical brilliance but the way Led Zeppelin connected with the audience, the tension and release, the improvisational daring, and the sheer confidence that made every performance unforgettable, and that set the tone for his own understanding of what it means to truly command a stage, while also inspiring him to constantly push the Rolling Stones to evolve and innovate, knowing that greatness on stage is as much about presence and storytelling as it is about musical skill. And then he moves on to the second band, the Beatles, whose influence he admits is impossible to overstate, not because he idolized them in the conventional sense but because their inventiveness, songwriting mastery, and cultural impact reshaped what music could be. And Jagger recounts watching footage and live performances where John, Paul, George, and Ringo transcended the idea of mere pop stars to become icons whose every note and gesture seemed to resonate with an entire generation, noting that their ability to merge melody, lyrical depth, and experimentation was something he could endlessly admire, and that observing them, even as a contemporary, informed his own approach to composition, arrangement, and performance. Because for Jagger, the Beatles exemplify how a band can be both massively successful and artistically daring without losing authenticity, and that balance is something he has always sought in his own work, while also appreciating the personalities, quirks, and humor that made their chemistry both complicated and compelling. And then he mentions the Rolling Stones themselves, not as a nod to ego but as an acknowledgement of the bands that influenced him and kept him aware of what it means to be truly great live, noting that even he is in awe of his own band's legacy when seen from an outside perspective, recognizing the raw power, groove, and communal energy that has kept the Stones relevant across generations. And he reflects on how observing his own performances, tours, and the interaction with fans provides an endless education in showmanship, endurance, and the art of connecting across decades, reminding him that great bands are as much about the shared experience as the notes played. And the next band he highlights is The Who, whose explosive stage presence and sonic daring have always impressed him. And he talks about watching Pete Townsend, Roger Daltrey, John Entwistle, and Keith Moon tear through songs with precision and chaos in equal measure, leaving audiences exhilarated and exhausted. And he admires the way The Who combined storytelling with destruction, energy with skill, and virtuosity with punkish rebellion, setting a benchmark for live performance that few have ever matched. And Jagger emphasizes that observing their concerts taught him about pacing, dynamics, and the sheer joy of playing with abandon while remaining in control, lessons that have informed decades of Stones tours and performances. And then he moves to The Clash, whose political edge, intensity, and fusion of punk, reggae, and rock captured a zeitgeist that resonated with him not just as a fan but as an artist aware of music's power to comment on society. And he praises their ability to combine a message with energy, storytelling with urgency, and rebellion with musicianship, noting that bands like The Clash demonstrate that you can be raw and uncompromising without sacrificing complexity, subtlety, or musicality, and that such performances are mesmerizing for anyone who values craft and authenticity. And then Jagger names Led Zeppelin's spiritual siblings, Queen, whose theatricality, technical skill, and ability to merge stadium rock with pop sensibility left him endlessly fascinated, recalling Freddie Mercury's charisma, Brian May's guitar tone, Roger Taylor's precision, and John Deacon's melodic sensibility. And he explains that watching Queen live is like watching a masterclass in how to captivate an audience, balance spectacle with intimacy, and maintain both showmanship and musical integrity. And Jagger admires their courage to experiment and challenge expectations, as well as their dedication to delivering a complete, immersive experience, because for him, that's what keeps a band watchable for decades, the ability to continually surprise, delight, and move audiences without losing focus or authenticity. And the next band he mentions is U2, whose live performances he has followed since the 80s, noting that Bono's commitment to message, stagecraft, and emotional intensity elevates every concert into a communal event, while the Edge's guitar textures create landscapes that feel vast and enveloping, and Jagger emphasizes that the magic of U2 lies in their consistency, vision, and ability to make every performance feel both personal and epic, demonstrating the enduring power of a band fully aligned in purpose and execution. And then he highlights AC/DC, whose unrelenting rock power, precision, and simplicity he finds endlessly watchable, noting that Angus Young's guitar antics, combined with the driving rhythms of the rhythm section and Brian Johnson's commanding vocals, create a live experience that is primal, joyful, and cathartic, proving that raw energy, tight musicianship, and showmanship can be timeless. And he explains that their concerts are a reminder that rock music's core is about movement, excitement, and connecting viscerally with an audience, elements he has sought to emulate and honor throughout his career. And the next band he discusses is the Velvet Underground, whose avant-garde experimentation, lyrical daring, and cultural audacity resonate with him deeply, because they demonstrate that being innovative, challenging, and provocative can produce music that transcends trends and remains endlessly engaging decades later. And he notes that their ability to combine minimalism with intensity, subtlety with shock, and poetry with noise is a blueprint for longevity in the mind of any artist, reminding him that influence is as much about vision and courage as about notes and rhythm. And then he moves to Bob Dylan's band, whose performances he admires not just for Dylan's legendary songwriting but for the musicianship, timing, and improvisational intelligence of those accompanying him, highlighting how a well-constructed band, even behind a singular star, can create moments of magic that invite repeated attention and study. And Jagger explains that watching a group like Dylan's ensemble reminds him that subtlety, restraint, and intuition can be as powerful as bombast and spectacle. And then he highlights the band, whose synergy, harmony, and Americana-infused rock continues to captivate him, because they embody the idea that a band can be timeless when members listen to each other, support each other, and balance individuality with collective identity. And finally, he names Nirvana, whose raw emotion, authenticity, and cultural impact resonate even decades after Kurt Cobain's tragic death, noting that the combination of pain, power, and melody creates performances that are unforgettable, demonstrating that intensity and honesty are what make a band eternally watchable. And Jagger concludes that what unites all these bands is not just technical skill, chart success, or image, but the intangible qualities that elevate music to art: energy, presence, chemistry, courage, emotion, and the ability to make the audience feel something profound, something transformative, something timeless. And as he reflects on his own 60-year career, he marvels at the privilege of witnessing such artistry, acknowledging that while his own experiences on stage with the Rolling Stones have been monumental, there is an unmatched thrill in seeing other artists reach heights of creativity, performance, and emotional resonance that can make a lifetime fan out of even the most seasoned performer. And he emphasizes that these 10 bands, Led Zeppelin, the Beatles, the Rolling Stones themselves, The Who, The Clash, Queen, U2, AC/DC, The Velvet Underground, Bob Dylan's band, The Band, and Nirvana, represent a spectrum of excellence that transcends genre, era, and convention, because what matters most is the purity of the experience, the electricity of the performance, and the enduring capacity to surprise, inspire, and move an audience. And Jagger says that even at 82, he could sit for hours watching any one of these bands and find himself